Hey everyone, once more this is me with not having better things to do on a Saturday night than making a video about Wheel of Time. Is Perrin a skinwalker? What is he? Unlike last couple of chapters, a lot of stuff happened in this batch of chapters. A lot of character stuff, some plot stuff as well. My favorite part was Perrin and his group's interaction with the Tinkers, which is a strange name for, I guess, a fantasy stand-in for Roma people, but it works. I guess they're a cross between fantasy Roma people and Quakers, or just essentially they're kind of a nomadic, traveling, pacifist group of people who likes to recruit others into their ways, and they seem to be against any kind of violence, not even in self-defense, just plain old, even if you are the one swinging the weapon, you're also committing a violence against yourself, I guess, which is an interesting thing to put in your fantasy world. Perrin's group encounters them because Elias agrees to lead them through the woods, and it's interesting. They get to relax a bit, even though Perrin still has nightmares. He also has this development that I actually really dig, but I don't understand it quite yet. So he has this connection with the wolves the way Elias has. He can almost speak to them. He feels what they feel. He doesn't speak in the way you'd think. They're not talking animals. They're not talking to him, but they are. He sees flashes of their emotions. So it would be like danger or fire or food, I guess. That's cool. I dig Perrin. I'd also dig Perrin because he's this very introspective character. Rand is also a bit of a thinker, let's say it like that, but I think he's a bit self-absorbed, and I'm not trying to paint Rand in such a negative way, but Perrin is this person who seems to be very concerned with how people feel, how his actions affect others. He is this very, I don't know, he is also full of self-doubt, yes, but he spends a lot of time in his head, and I can relate to that. Also, we find out that apparently I was wrong, and Thom the Gleeman was actually a decent human being. More than that, he did have sort of different intentions with the boys, with Rand and Matt, because they stop riding this boat and they go into the city. Now, turns out that Thom was feeling very protective of the boys because he had a nephew that was caught up in the Aes Sedai business, and he passed away, and apparently Thom holds the Aes Sedai responsible for his loss, and he feels this need to protect them, and he sacrificed himself which I did not expect at all. So he sacrifices himself when they run into a half-man, the Fade, the Murdrel. See, I'm keeping up with the names. And the boys... Also, I'm repeating myself, but Matt, of course he kept a treasure from the cursed city. He's also behaving strangely. And I hope this doesn't end up with this old cliche of, he totally has a cursed thing that will come crashing down on him and his friend because of his greed, and his friend did nothing, even though it's just, I know that Rand gets caught up in Matt's schemes a lot, but in this case I think that Rand should intervene. Now I know that Rand has a lot of things on his mind, that one's a given, but still, you know how your friend Matt is, Rand. You also witnessed and barely escaped from a cursed city, and the very experienced Aes Sedai told you that do not take anything from this cursed ghost ever. Don't do anything he does. And what does your friend do? He does this. He takes this cursed dagger for himself. And of course, when you suggest, at least we're now financially taken care of, because if we run into trouble and we don't have money, we can just sell this shiny dagger of yours. And of course your friend goes, sure, totally, I'm totally not, one-ringed with this cursed dagger, not at all. Come on, really? I hope it doesn't turn out this way, but I'm sure it will be, because, he did take it, so it has to, this plotline has to resolve itself in some way, and I'm sure it will. What else I liked? Well, I hope I don't get to bite my tongue on this, but I am enjoying the lack of a love triangle so far, because we do have a very mixed and rather large cast, and a lot of this cast is around the same age, and they spend a lot of time growing up together. And a viewer pointed out in a recent comment that Nynaeve is 27, which I guess makes sense. I was just never clear on her age, because she behaves a bit like she's same age as the group, as the boys and Egwene, but she does retell of her time as an apprentice for a previous wisdom, and she took care of Egwene when she was very little. So I guess she's older than them, but she's not that old. She's in her mid-20s. She's 27 at the time of this book. And I don't think there is a love triangle. I have expected it to be. And there was this, I guess, one point when they're running through the swamps, or what was it, with Elias, and Elias questions Perrin about his intentions about his ex. He goes like, so you hate her, right? You hate her and her attitude, talking about Egwene. And he's like, no, I don't hate her, I love her. And he looks at him. He's like, and Perrin's like, no, not like that. She's she has a thing with my best friend, and it's not exactly a brother-sister thing, but it's almost like we're siblings. That's the vibe I'm getting from him, and I really liked it, because I'm not opposed to romance in fantasy books. I'm not opposed to romantic books at all. I'm not opposed to romance books, period. I just think that more often than not, actual friendships between men and women, like non-romantic, just friendships, get a bit not underrated. They just get shafted. It's always this development of, yeah, so we developed this female character and this male character, and they've known each other from birth, and they are so compatible, and it can never stay just as friends. Because, in real world, people do have friends, and friends are great. In real world, people also fall in love and have relationships. That's also great. But I'm kind of sick of love triangles, and I'm happy that it did not happen between Perrin and Egwene. Furthermore, Egwene was seemingly into this, one of the travelers, one of the children. Everyone's a child. Every group is a child in this book. I'm being facetious, but so far we have children of the light, right? And the children, the traveling children, the tinkers. And that was a good thing. She's into this young tinker. And back to Perrin, because I find him that interesting. Also, one thing I appreciate about him, as I said, his introspectiveness. So even though he's also a bit too relaxed, he is super into... He warmed up to this way of living because they are traveling a bit with the tinkers, and he is beginning to understand and appreciate their way of life, even though he has several arguments with them. But there is this internal thought, which is a redundant thing to say. All thoughts are redundant, internal. All thoughts are redundant. Mine. But anyway, he has this thought that I really appreciated. He goes like, I'm falling too much into the way of the people. And he is this very sober character that is a really good contrast to the rest of the cast, and especially to Egwene in this case, because we get a feeling that Egwene, even though she's the one who is the most invested in the idea of actually becoming an Aes Sedai, to going to this new place, to train, to learn to control it, she's adamant that other people in her group are alive, that Moraine will save them, they have to find her. There is no if, it's just when. But we get a feeling that she's kind of a bit warming up to the thought of maybe this can be my life. Well, later then we find out that actually, yeah, she was also not sick of it, but she was also beginning to have the same thoughts as Perrin did, but not as pronounced. I hope this internal conflict that Perrin has, because he's so untrustworthy of one power and anything to do in Aes Sedai, and he thinks that his ability to talk to the wolves comes from a similar place, and he's afraid of it, even though he, on some level, I think he understands that this is one thing that's kind of a defense that he found from the dreams and the Dark One, with a silly demon name that I keep forgetting, I'm sorry. But yeah, also there's this one line that I really liked by Robert Jordan. He, at one point, Elias goes, we take out our chances at the choices of evil. That is pretty a nice turn of phrase, I thought. So, also, the behavior of locals. I'm constantly amused by the word dark friend, but also the behavior of locals when they paint someone as dark friend. I kind of get a vibe of witch hunting, because one of the crew members of the ship that Rand and Matt and Tom traveled on kind of had a grudge against Rand and the group, and he kind of gets them into trouble, to put it lightly. And just the way the people talk everywhere, I kind of get a feeling that if you don't like someone all that much and you say proper things to a riled up group of people, you accuse someone of being a dark friend, even though they say they're escaping danger and stuff, you could have a good old-fashioned, I don't know, lynching on your hands. It's kind of the vibe I'm getting, which I did not expect, because dark friend is such a silly word. I'm sorry, but it really is. Also, what else? Well, we do find a lot of the backstory about the people of Aiel and the Horn and Eye of the World a bit. I'll be honest, before I began reading this, I thought that the Eye of the World was some kind of a mountain peak. But apparently it's not. So, yeah, the group marches on until they are inevitably rejoined. Also, Nynaeve. As I said before, I do like Nynaeve, and I actually find it really amusing her boiling anger and frustration at just Moraine's and Lance's, to a lesser extent, attitude. It's like Moraine is killing her with kindness. She's so perfectly zen and still, and nothing Nynaeve says can provoke her, get her. It's just great. I love it. It's so good. It's so funny. It's because now that I know that Nynaeve is also this someone who is important to the wheel, and she has a greater role to play, an even more direct one from I guess when I started to read and I knew that Nynaeve is an important character, I just didn't get the impression that she is in many ways so important, but still her interaction with Moraine is hilarious. It's so good. What else? Oh yeah, one thing that I almost omitted, back to Perrin, the thing where Perrin was seriously thinking about just giving Egwene a quick death when they thought that they had no way out. That was heartbreaking. That was really well done. Also very like daylight horror nightmare stuff. That was pretty heavy stuff. Also, the wolves, they were hurt. I hate when animals are hurt, especially wolves. Don't hurt the doggies, please. I want to know that the wolves are okay. So yeah, thank you for watching, and see you next time.